Hi, everyone. Welcome back to Unmasking Motherhood. I'm your host, Beth Moore. If we have not connected before, if you're not familiar with my work, I'm a mom of two living in the Midwest. And part of my work in the world, huge part of it, is helping guide women as they reconnect within, specifically mothers, and reclaim motherhood as the pathway to their best life. I feel like there's so much negative talk on motherhood and what it takes from you or how hard of work it is. And it's true. Motherhood completely changes our life and it can be really freaking challenging. And I'm here to guide people into how it can awaken them and bring them more closely in alignment with their truest self, to provide opportunities for authentic connection and gatherings and sisterhood with other mothers, and to just live more fully alive. Like, motherhood is so much more than what we've been told it can be. So in today's episode, it's going to be a little different. I tend to bring mothers on the podcast and have them share their mothering journey. Today, I want to recap by giving a little lesson from each of the first 10 interviews I had. So I just celebrated 10 interviews, but I do occasionally do solo episodes. And here is one today. This one is going to be a recap of a teaching, something for you to ruminate on, or a permission slip that you might need to hear, or an action step that you might want to take, all related to motherhood, all from a podcast episode I've already done. So maybe it'll lead you to go, listen more deeply to one of the episodes. I hope you enjoy and you can take something from this episode. So let's dive in. P.S. You might hear my kids. I'm in the basement. The kids are upstairs playing. So just a heads up. And I also have notes so I stay on track. So you'll see my eyes wander as I make sure I'm saying what I want to say to you. So the first episode of the podcast I had on Mom Taylor, and the lesson, the teaching from this that I wanted to convey here is that it's okay to not like motherhood, like full on fat permission slip to hate it in factoring seasons. At the time, Taylor was newly postpartum with her second baby, had had two under two and was just in it, struggling with postpartum depression. And so of course it's going to not be a load of rainbows and butterflies. And that is something so many women I know feel shame about. They feel like they can't talk about it. They judge themselves for it. And what if we had radical permission to just own that as our truth in that moment in motherhood and remember that it's not going to last forever. So let's jump into episode number 2. This is with Rebecca, and a teaching from the podcast is that kids are always learning. They're going to stumble. They're going to fall. They're figuring out along the way. Grace, grace, grace for them, right? It's hard to figure it out. Whether you're like a 1-year-old, a 2-year-old, your brain's always developing up until you're 25? And then you're hitting puberty and adolescence. It's just such an awkward, clunky time. So compassion for our kids. And the part that I want to add here is it's okay for us both to stumble along the way. You've never been a mother before. They've never been your children before. So we're figuring this out. Motherhood is our growing up too. I'm going to say that again. Motherhood is your growing up too. Episode number 3, where I have on Mom Lindsay, she was discussing the struggle with mom rage, resentment in that, especially early postpartum period when you're breastfeeding, if you are breastfeeding and you're taking on, as mothers often do, the primary responsibility of the baby carrying. And I want to just name here that just the importance of speaking up, your needs matter, having a safe person to name them to during that early period, and also crafting a game plan going into postpartum, especially if you're having your second, your third, so on and so on. You can always make adjustments to better support you or to get creative about how your partner can just help you out more. So something to think about if you're going to have a baby or you're going to have more children. It is so normal to feel resentment, to feel mom rage. So let's unshame that, but also know that you can decrease the intensity of those feelings by going in with a plan and by also speaking up and naming those needs. So this feels like way consolidated for how I want to share it, but bite-sized chunks, everybody. Let's go into episode number 4, where I bring on Mom Melissa. And in this episode, Melissa was talking about judgment from family and friends, just the inner isolation she can feel with the eating habits that she has that are different than other people in her life, and the judgment she can feel from them. And I'm like, hey, we all judge ourselves so much against other moms. It's just natural. But what if we created more of a culture? I just saw such a need from this episode of like, what if we had a culture of like curiosity and open-mindedness and like, hey, we're not robots. We're all different and unique. Great that you want to feed your child this way. I respect that. I respect you. I'm not going to judge it. Instead of being threatened by our differences and feeling isolated, what if we just owned our own, and in turn we can better own other people's instead of further isolating ourselves through our judgment or their judgment or perceived insecurities, all of it. So we don't need more isolated mothers in the world. And Melissa's story just pointed us to like, yes, it's so important, one, to find your group of people who have the same beliefs where you can speak freely. And also two, like just culturally, collectively, how can we be more open-minded and loving for people that believe different things, especially in motherhood? It's like, feels sometimes like us against them, attachment parenting versus not, all the things like home birth versus hospital birth, homeschool versus traditional school. Like, you do you. Like, great, let's just support each other and tear down those walls of separation. All right, I'm getting off my high horse there. Not high horse, step. What's the word that people say? Podium. Okay, episode number 5, I bring on Mom Kim. And what I want to name as the teaching here is, if you have not struggled with getting pregnant, infertility, you don't know the inner journey and pain that can be. And I want to just say a couple things. One, can we normalize not asking people when they're going to have a kid? Because God forbid the person you ask has just had a miscarriage, or they have been trying for years. Like, stop being nosy. Unless you're super close to somebody, don't just project that on their life, because you don't know what they're going through. And it's a very sensitive topic. And so if you do know someone struggling with infertility, instead of trying to like fix it or offer help, what if you're just like, how can I be here for you? Coming open-handedly without an agenda, without the judgment. They're already going through enough. What if the best thing you can do is just to love them through it? And how can I be here? What do you need? I'm not here to try to fix it or to judge why you might not be being able to get pregnant. I'm just here. Maybe it's just to hold your hand, to hug you, to watch a movie that will make us laugh or make us cry. I'm here. Okay, lesson number 6 from episode number 6 with Cassie. I loved this one. People don't talk enough about the beauty of internal change that comes with motherhood. Like, have you ever stopped to really think of how it grows you as a person? In the episode, I said something around the transformation, the challenges of motherhood take you to both the ends and the beginnings of yourself. Like, honestly, nothing else in my life has. And motherhood can get a bad rap from people who aren't mothers or even mothers. Like, prior to becoming a mother, I heard so much crap about it, but then like, oh, you're going to find a love you never had. I'm like, okay, this is kind of interesting. No one ever talked about the epic evolution of self that comes with motherhood. And I want you to just know, if you're a mom, you have transformed in more ways, physically, emotionally, spiritually, than you're probably giving yourself credit for. So let's just name that now. Give yourself a pat on the back. Episode number 7 is with Monica. And in this episode, she talked about incorporating family values with her children. And I love this because it's a way to bring them on board, make them feel like they're part of this team culture, and everyone knows what they are. Now, if you have an infant, maybe you're not talking to them about your family values. This might apply more to those with older kids in school. And what I want to say here is that Monica's suggestion to have the kids like have a say in the family values and talk about with them your children is so key and crucial to being on the same page, making sure just everyone's clear about what they are. And one of the ways she words it when she's talking about family values is saying this, quote, In our family, and hers was, we treat everyone with kindness and respect. That's an easy example of how you can word it. Say your child has an instance with a friend, or you have an issue with your partner in front of your kids, and it's like, hey, I'm really sorry about that, or hey, this is something I want you to think about. Because in our family, we, in her example, treat everyone with kindness and respect. So you're tying it in without shaming. You're bringing people back to what matters in your family and creating that togetherness culture. We're all here supporting one another. Okay, episode number 8 is with Alana, and she talked a lot about emotional intelligence and unshaming our emotions and the connection between the mind and body. I mean, there's just a depth of knowledge here, so definitely go listen to the episode. But so much of our in an internal landscape is held in our body, and so we miss out on wisdom by just connecting with the mind. And one way to just take a leap into becoming more somatically aware is to start by just telling yourself, everything I'm feeling is normal. And it's here to teach me something. Like really just starting to believe that everything that you're feeling from any situation, let's go with motherhood, it's normal. It's here to teach me something. And this impacts not just, the way you show up for yourself in your life, but your relationship with your children. They often learn, as we all know, more from how we are than what we say. And so doing that work first and working on our nervous systems is an act of love towards us and our children. Episode number 9 is with Mama Alex, and she, the lesson that she was telling me amongst many of them is that children come into the world with so much wisdom. And I don't know about you, but the society in which I live in, it can try to just change you so much through the systems and structures, intentionally and unintentionally. And also us as parents, we might want to control our kids because of our own internal discomfort, our ego. She gave an example of, your kid puts their shirt on backwards or wears mismatching colors. And you're like, oh no, honey, you can't go out in public like that. But what if you, as a mom, she just is like, you know what? I'm embracing it. It's awesome. Children deserve to be the fullest expression of themselves. I'm going to say that again. Children deserve to be the fullest expression of themselves. And I'm just wondering if there's a connection between us not being able to let our children be who they fully are because we're not even sure, because we were never allowed to be. So there's a little tidbit of that for you. Again, all of these, we could just unpack so much more. So go listen to the episode when you get a chance. But episode number 10, final lesson for this episode today. We talked to Kelsey, and she was describing a situation with one of her boys where she rides her bike with her son to school. And she doesn't even like riding bikes, but he really, really loves it. And it's a way for her to connect with him. And so the lesson here is our kids, whether blatantly or inadvertently, are always seeking connection with us. We're their person. And these are beautiful opportunities that can be missed a lot of the time to just cultivate a deeper connection. And it can be in the small things often. So if it's something you're wanting to work on this year, you could start by just asking your kid, how can, depending on their age, how can mommy be a better mommy to you? What's something that would make you really smile if I did it with you? Or if you have a teenager who's maybe not telling you, it's how can you get into their world? What is your gut instinct telling you on ways you can connect with them? And Kelsey shared, just keep it small. It doesn't have to be these big, grandiose things. You don't have to ride your bike with your kid to school. That's her thing, but it may not be yours. It could be spending 20 minutes once a week working on Legos with your kid. That was my example. Being more present and not having your phone around to connect with them. They feel the presence of the phone. They feel when you're really there. They feel that difference. So never underestimate the power of small tweaks to connect with your child and the impact that might have to your bond, your connection. Okay, Those are 10. It was really hard, y'all, to like pull just one from each episode. Though I hope you enjoyed this and it was bite-sized enough and that some of these spoke to you, whether you're a mom, whether you're thinking about having kids, or whether you just love moms in your life and you're like, oh, now I can understand my friends, my mom, my sister more deeply because she's mom. So thank you for watching. What was your favorite lesson? Feel free to email me, comment below. I would love to hear. Mwah.